You are in your 30s. You have a decent job, you pay your bills on time, and yet every month feels like a game of Tetris where the blocks fall faster than you can clear them. There's the mortgage or the rent that keeps climbing. There are the kids who need clothes, activities, childcare. There's the car that just started making a noise you cannot afford to ignore. You look at your 20s and remember when a late night and a cheap pizza felt like freedom. Now, freedom feels like a line item you cannot fit into the budget. You've tried the apps, you've tried the spreadsheets, you've tried telling yourself that next month will be different, but next month arrives and it's the same story. This looks like bad planning or weak discipline, but it is actually something else entirely. It is the decade where your financial life stops being about you and starts being about everyone else. And the question you're probably too tired to ask is this: why does earning more money seem to make everything tighter? Let me say this gently. If you are in your 30s and you feel like you are drowning in expenses that did not exist 10 years ago, you are not bad with money. You are not failing. You are not secretly irresponsible. You are living through the most expensive decade of the average human life, and your brain is trying to protect you by keeping you in survival mode. That is not a flaw. That is a design flaw in how we talk about wealth. The advice you hear online, save more, invest early, cut the lattes, was written for people in their 20s with roommates and no dependents. It does not fit your life, and trying to fit it is making you feel like something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. The rules just changed, and no one sent you the memo. Here's where this behavior shows up first. You look at your bank balance after paying for daycare, the mortgage, the car, the insurance, the groceries. There's something left, but not enough. Not enough to feel safe, not enough to cover the unexpected. So you tell yourself you will save next month. Next month comes. The water heater breaks, the kid needs braces, your partner's car needs tires. The leftover disappears, and you start to believe that saving is impossible, that you are cursed, that everyone else must have figured out something you missed. That is not true. What you're experiencing is the collision between short-term survival and long-term goals, and your brain will always choose survival. That is not weakness. That is biology. The part of your mind that worries about retirement in 30 years is no match for the part that needs to pay for soccer registration by Friday. So you pay, and you feel guilty, and the guilt piles up like unread emails. Let's walk through a typical Tuesday. You wake up tired because you were up late folding laundry or finishing work. You get the kids ready, which involves finding shoes, making lunches, and negotiating over breakfast. You drop them off. You commute. You sit at a desk for 8 or 9 hours, answering emails, attending meetings, solving problems that aren't yours. You commute back. You pick up groceries because the fridge is empty. You make dinner. You help with homework. You clean up. You collapse. Somewhere in that 16-hour day, you were supposed to review your 401k contributions. You were supposed to transfer money to savings. You were supposed to compare insurance rates and refinance the mortgage and update your will. But there is no space. The day is full, and the mental folder labeled later never comes. Not because you're lazy, because your brain has a limited amount of decision-making energy each day. Psychologists call it ego depletion. You call it exhaustion. In your 30s, demand decisions constantly. What to feed everyone, when to schedule the doctor, whether to repair the dishwasher or replace it. By the time you get to the big money questions, your brain is empty, so you do nothing, and then you feel guilty. That guilt is not a call to action. It is a sign that you're asking too much of yourself. The real trap of your 30s is not that you spend too much on wants. It is that your needs have multiplied and become invisible. A need in your 20s was rent and ramen. A need in your 30s is health insurance, life insurance, home maintenance, dental care, school supplies, summer camp, car repairs, and 100 other things that don't feel like choices. They feel like obligations. And because they're obligations, you don't question them. You just pay, and the money disappears into a fog of necessity. This is not lifestyle inflation. This is lifestyle multiplication. And it happens to almost everyone, but no one warns you. They just tell you to budget better, as if a budget can turn $3,000 of fixed expenses into $2,000. As if a spreadsheet cares that your child has a fever and you had to take a half day. The advice assumes a level of control that you simply don't have when other humans depend on you. Think about the concept of money margin. Margin is the space between your expenses and your income. In your 20s, you had low expenses and low income. The margin was thin but flexible. You could skip dinner out. You could move to a cheaper apartment. You could pick up a side hustle. In your 30s, your income is higher, but your expenses are also higher, and more of those expenses are fixed. You can't skip the mortgage. You can't move easily because of school districts. You can't pick up extra hours because you have to be home for bedtime. The margin feels thinner even though the numbers are bigger. That is not an illusion. That is math. And that's why so many people in their 30s feel like they're running in place. They are, but running in place is not the same as moving backward. It's just not moving forward as fast as they hoped. But here's the part most people miss. Your 30s are not the decade where you build wealth. They're the decade where you build structure. The savings you accumulated in your 20s were supposed to carry you through this squeeze, but most people didn't have enough 20s left over after student loans and entry-level salaries. So you're building the plane while flying it, and that's exhausting. The psychological shift that needs to happen is this. Stop comparing your 30s to a financial ideal that doesn't exist. The person who saves 20% of their income in their 30s either has no children, no mortgage, or family money. That's not most people. Most people are treading water. And treading water is not failure. It's just not progress. But it's also not regression. And sometimes holding steady is the most honest form of success. The rules of wealth accumulation change when your obligations multiply. The rule is no longer save as much as possible. The rule becomes protect your ability to keep showing up, because showing up every month, paying the bills, keeping everyone fed and housed, that's not nothing. That's the quiet, invisible labor that allows your 40s and 50s to exist at all. And this is where money becomes emotional. The brain does something unexpected here. It starts to equate every expense with a lost opportunity. You pay for daycare and feel like you're losing your retirement. You pay the mortgage and feel like you're losing your freedom. You buy groceries and feel like you're losing your future. That is not math. That is scarcity mindset bleeding into every transaction. Your brain is so afraid of never getting ahead that it turns every necessary expense into a tragedy. That fear is real, but it is also misleading, because the alternative to paying for daycare is not saving that money. The alternative is one of you staying home and losing income. The alternative to paying the mortgage is renting and losing equity. The alternative to buying groceries is not eating. The expenses are not optional, so the guilt is not useful. It's just noise, expensive noise that makes you feel worse without changing anything. Your brain is trying to protect you by keeping you alert, but constant alertness is not protection. It's a low-grade fever that burns through your energy and leaves you feeling sick for no reason. Let's talk about identity for a moment. In your 20s, your financial identity was probably built around potential. You were going to be someone. You were going to earn more, save more, achieve more. In your 30s, that potential has either materialized or it hasn't. And either way, you're left with reality. The reality is that you have responsibilities that your 20-year-old self could not have imagined. That shift from potential to reality is jarring. It can feel like settling, like failure, but it's not. It's maturity. The same behavior of budgeting, of tracking expenses, of saying no to things, that behavior feels different in your 30s because the stakes are different. In your 20s, saying no to a night out meant saving $50. In your 30s, saying no to a new car means keeping your emergency fund intact. The behavior is the same. The weight is different. And that weight is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It is a sign that you're doing something that matters. Your relationship with money changes completely when you stop measuring your 30s by the same ruler you used in your 20s. In your 20s, every dollar saved was a victory. In your 30s, every dollar spent keeping your family safe and stable is also a victory. It just doesn't feel like one because there's nothing to show for it at the end of the month. No shiny balance, no milestone, just a quiet month where nothing broke and everyone ate. That quiet month is not nothing, it is the foundation. The behavior evolves from accumulation to maintenance, and maintenance is less glamorous, but it is what allows you to reach your 40s without debt, without crisis, without starting over. The same habit of paying attention to money feels different when you have dependents. It feels heavier. That is not because you're doing it wrong. It is because the stakes are higher, and your brain knows it, so it tenses up, it worries, it scans for threats. That scanning is exhausting, but it is also evidence that you care, and caring is not a weakness. This behavior reduces stress by creating predictability. When you automate the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, the savings, even a small amount, you build a locked vault around your basic needs. The money goes out